It's the same thing as what I said with sort of the Wings and Steve Yzerman giving guys opportunity to get that next contract. That's what it seems to be here. And in doing that, when guys want to be here because they have the opportunity to play, when they believe, here's what culture is.
I did want to talk about this too, about the Detroit Lions. And we saw this with DJ Chark, and he referenced it, as a matter of fact, when he basically said, culture's what sold me on coming to the Lions. And D-Mac, look,
My favorite word.
I'm not trying to go elitist on it, but I'm in my fair share of locker rooms. I'm in the room too. And I've always thought, to some degree, that culture is a bit oversold when people talk about it. Because I've said, if you show me a championship team, I'll show you a good culture. How do I know? Because they won a championship. And there are exceptions. It's not a blanket, it's not a blanket rule or anything like that. But for me, when you're a team, and I would imagine this was different for you guys because you always said your locker room ran itself. Everyone understood the hierarchy. There was no questions. Everybody knew what the jobs were. There were no doubts about it. There were no complaining about it because the cup was the objective.
Well, you can complain about it, but it was water cooler talk, right?
Yeah.
If you were upset, it's because you were the brunt of whatever's happening. But at the end of the day, the machine was rolling for championships, right? Not individual stats, and that's sort of like, is the culture on the same page, right? And I think it's more important when you're young and when you're building it or when you haven't won, right? The culture is apparent, like the culture that they built in Tampa Bay. Now that they've won, that's when you see what the culture is. You don't really see what the culture is until you see adversity. It's important because, what DJ Chark, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but they were 3-13 last year, and he said watching Detroit and seeing the way they compete and stuff like that, that wasn't their team. That wasn't to be a part of it. So to go and to build something, and I think with some younger guys, and when you turn it to what Brad Holmes is doing, shorter contracts, right? Getting guys in here that want to play, that want to prove themselves, that want to be, right? Because here's the apparent. Charles Harris, brought in last year, was told, you earn it, you get it. What did he get? Just signed a 2-year, $14 million contract, right? So it's the same thing as what I said with sort of the Wings and Steve Yzerman giving guys opportunity to get that next contract. That's what it seems to be here. And in doing that, when guys want to be here because they have the opportunity to play, when they believe, here's what culture is. A lot of it too is you believe the bill of goods that you're sold, right? And either that, so the culture is because either the guys that are already in the room, you have respect for it and you see how they operate, or the coaching staff in the direction and the GM of what they're talking about and where they want to go. Right? Detroit versus everybody in every culture here, it's got to be hard work. It's got to be work ethic, and then you build, and then you build on the talent, right? Where it's different, but it's really not, is with the basketball team, because you got the best player, best rookie, and stuff like this coming, so you can feed around him, but he works the hardest. Same thing with the young kids in the culture with what Steve Yzerman's doing. It's just, and when you bring Steve Yzerman back, it's just an implementation and a shot in the arm of what was already there. It's sort of like turning the lights on to turning the TV on to 4K, or turning the bright lights on, right? It's back there. So it's an attitude, but it starts. And you're right, Neil, but you don't know what the culture is until they've won, until they faced adversity, until they've got themselves off the mat. We can see last year what the culture of development is: persistence and resilience of the Detroit Lions, and work ethic and improving and playing and fighting for each other. So when DJ Chark says culture is what brought me here, it's what they've started, and he feels like, man, I can be a part of this, and I want to be a part of this. I can be a big part of this.
Well, that's why, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves to some degree when we say have Campbell and Holmes change the Lions culture already.
Yeah, yes, it's a different culture, because the old culture was doing it the old way. So the culture has changed because it's not done the same. It's the same thing as you can't, and that way is because he drafted guys that played last year. He got guys into game. We saw Dan Campbell improve as the coach. There's been changes made. Their operating procedure is the first obstacle to culture that things are different.
And that's where our common ground is, D-Mac, on it. Because I say
things are different. That means the culture, which was bad culture, looks like it's being changed. And now we got players coming in, not being the old way where I got to give you $100 million to come to Detroit. We're building something and guys want to come. Shorter deals, not hamstringing the organization. And you're going to get your meat and potatoes, guys, first. And if they don't work out, what happens, Neil? Then it doesn't cost you. You're not hamstrung on deals, which has been past operating procedure, which means bad culture.
Right. And the thing with me, too, about the culture that is different to some degree. And I don't think you can. And look, we're in the day and age where everything's immediate. It's yes or no right now. I think that there's signs that the quote unquote culture is changing. And that's where, again, and I've shared this story with you guys before where, guys that I know that work for the Lions organization that were just kind of broomed out of there because they were going to do things the way that they do it because they knew better than everybody else, and we saw what the end result was. You're certainly not hearing those stories now with what's going on inside the Lions organization. It's trending that way, I would agree. But I think, to say that the culture has changed, I definitively think, D-Mac, that you cannot say that until you win games, man. Because your culture can be great. It's pro sports, man. You're 3-13-1. Your record, you are what your record says you are. Your culture is what your record says it is. And you can be great and everyone can get along and stuff like that. But if you're not good enough, cool story, bro. Tell me about your culture some more, bro. Like that it doesn't. You have to win games before people can plant the flag and say the culture's changed.
No, that's true. But you can also say, okay, where's the why? Because it's leading you to, the recipe, the meal's not cooked yet. But, dude, I can smell the barbecue, so I'm making my way over there. Because why? Because the players are smelling it. We're hearing this thing out. But, yeah, you have to win. But it's developing culture, Neil. Culture's a cake until you win it. We're just building it, but you're getting ingredients. And now you're moving towards that end of the neighborhood because you can smell it. But where's that coming from? Oh, it's down around the block. Well, I'm going to start walking that way because it's piqued my interest.
Yeah. No, which I understand.
Hey, quick, D-Mac being D-Mac, because I put you two clowns on timeout. Don't bring that crap into the chat thread. Go do it in private. Do whatever else. I'll do it every time. So you got a timeout this time. Next time, I'll kick your butts off the whole screen. So please, we're not here for that. That's other behavior. You see it all over the internet, but I'm putting my foot down, not on Big D energy. Thank you. Continue to go. That's culture. See, right there, I'm dropping the culture because it's not acceptable when I'm around. Do it on the other shows if they allow you to, but not on my show. Serious as a heart attack. There's a culture.
There's a culture
Big
for you.
Energy culture. We wind up this culture too, because even though you see it, but a lot of times it's like baking a cake. Sometimes the wrong ingredient is put out as you're building the culture, and it ruins the cake. Right, so culture until the end, it's a build on thing, right? So the minute we're talking right now, right? Everybody's excited. You got guys who are coming in. You always want them to be excited. But if somebody that comes in can tilt the apple cart, that can ruin your culture too. So that's something about being built.
D. Smitty says, Neil, but it's a good sign that free agents want to come here. Detroit used to be the dungeon where free agents came to end their careers. Mickey Lum Phelps says, win a playoff game, then talk to me about culture. And Mickey, you know what? I lean more towards where you're at. I do. Like, we could talk about the cool signings and stuff like that, but it is a bottom line business, man.
Missing the point. Culture has nothing to do with wins and losses. The culture that you look to as a winning culture is exactly after you win a playoff game. But culture is there's bad culture. What do you think the Texans and the Jags and whatever, they're trying to change the culture just like we are too. Now, here's to that point, when they win a playoff game, then, Neil, maybe you can say that's the only time that I'll consider it positive culture. To you, that's your prerogative if that's how you keep score. I don't keep score that way. because culture is a thing that's built. It's separate than wins and losses, but you look at the culture and it usually mirrors where you're at in wins and losses and championships and stuff like this. So it's just, to me, it's the journey part, and we're going in the right direction. We're moving forward.
JGB. So, Neil, even though the Patriots won a lot, was their culture considered good? Because we've heard a lot of different things. It had to be okay, right? For them to win at that level, it had to be okay. But there was a hierarchy there.
If you govern championships, if that's your end-all, be-all, and you don't care how it's done and whatever else, then that's the epitome of culture. Because they get it done and they run guys in, and the Belichick way or the culture to whatever it is the way that they do it. Other teams try it. His assistants leave and try it. They can't do it. But there's more of a plug-and-play process. It's not about the individual. They had the GOAT there, and he was one of their least paid players because of culture. They created the culture.
Not all cultures are equal.
Not all cultures are equal.
Or defined the same way, or operate the same way.
Absolutely. Or have the same scruples, or same morals, or play by the same rules. Right? The same thing as what it was always here in Detroit. Oh, you won't go get somebody. You don't want somebody to raise your kid. You'd have them on your team. The Detroit Lions have always shown that's always an issue.
Right.
With the character. That's you build culture different than they build culture.